intro, so I'm just filming this after I did everything. Some critical notes before you do this. Definitely just go to the junkyard, get another seat. Do not modify your original seat, especially if you have an M3 with the seat in good condition. That's a bit silly. That's what I did. I definitely would not do that again. Also, I would just recommend getting a good condition early switch. That way you don't have to take your, modifying a switch. That just seems like way too much work when you can just get a switch that would work, no problem. Yeah, that's all. This is basically just the rest of the scenes you'll see are just notes as I was installing it. I didn't see a DIY online anywhere or an in-depth one. So at least maybe someone can watch this and gain something before they go to install it, so they don't have to figure everything out on their own. Enjoy. And I do mumble, as you'll hear, so. I'm gonna document this. So for a long time I've had this Recaro, not a long time, I don't know, 6 months or something. It was a great deal. Basically a takeoff from it was just about to expire. He had it in a car, looks like it never really got sat in. Near mint condition. It was really just too nice for the beige car, and I was so used to the beige car seat because I've sat in it for 100,000 miles. Put it in, just felt weird. So I've just been keeping it around as a spare, but now I have the M3, so I wanted to put it as a driver's seat. So I ordered these. These should utilize you to use, I really don't like the packaging, but it should allow you to use the factory seat rails, electric or manual. I have electric. If you're gonna do electric, then you just need to purchase this window switch, which I already have from a part. I almost went to the yard for one of these. Can't believe I didn't think I would have one, but I do have one. And so I'll have to wire that up. You'll see how they get installed in a bit. If you have manual sliders, there should be an adapter you need because you obviously can't use, I believe it's on the side on E46 manual seats, so you just adapt it to the center. They have something else you buy for that. These are Brey Krause adapters. They have different size ones. You have to buy it based on the width of your seat. So typical side mount seats obviously have mounts on the side. Since they're fixed, this width can vary. So the adapters you buy will change. I don't know how they change this part, but they're different part numbers. I got these from Drift HQ. Turner ECS sells them. It looks like all the people just drop ship it from Brey Krause. Drift HQ is the only one who, when I called, let me know that they had 5 in stock in Pennsylvania, and they can evolve quite a bit, basically because they're memory motors. Each wire now has 4 wires going to it, and then first they go through a module. I thought I was going to be able to just connect stuff with the plug here, but since it's a memory seat, this is pain. So what I did was I have 12 volts to supply to the switch. And then these will be to the motor. These will just be sitting here. And then this one will also just be sitting here. So I need to tape that up. But yeah, I'm just going to fuck around and find out at this point. At the end of the day, I can always just put this back together. I will have to solder it or crimp it, but it's really not the end of the world. So moving on. Alright, so as far as doing this, you're going to get the hardware shipped in a manner something like this, which is basically a giant clusterfuck. Something I'm going to have to figure out in a bit here is, so E46 seats are not by default centered. They're actually a bit offset. So now in the instructions they say you can center it. I don't know how many times or how much fiddle fucking it requires. I am about to find out. I'll keep you updated, but this does not help, so I'll try and document it for me already. Basically, the way these rails work is instead of using the 4 studs that the factory uses, they use the rear one, and then they use these 2 front holes and these bolts and nuts. These bolts and nuts are ground off at the sides, so they fit flushly in the rail, and you'd have to hold them with a wrench. The problem with that is that they still need quite a bit of space to go in, so the way I removed my seat did not work to where I could fit the bolts in like that. So what I had to do was put it back in the car, and I left enough bare wire here to where I could touch these together and get the seat to move forward. There shouldn't be really any way to fuck this up because there's only 4 wires, and if you pick it up both ways, it's a motor, so it's either going to go the wrong way or the right way. So you're just going to have to figure out which way it goes, and then get the seat, ideally, to where you can get those bolts. My kit had incomplete hardware. Basically, for these, this goes onto a threaded portion with the shoulder, and the point of that shoulder is so it can rotate on the stock seat. You don't need that on this seat. However, they make this a very tight fit for, I'm assuming, a couple reasons, mostly strength, because you don't want any impact loading on that pin. So they just have it a nice tight fit. So what I had to do was thread the nut on just to get it lined up with the shoulder. And then I got a big fat washer here that was the perfect diameter to go over the shoulder. to be a nice fit around it, and then big enough to put this washer on. And yeah, so luckily I poured out some cars, so I had that. If you don't have that, I don't know what the fuck you do, but I had that. As far as these, I'm leaving them loose until everything is perfectly mounted. The rear bolts I have threaded in because I read that these are easy to cross thread. Because this is aftermarket parts, I already know everything's going to be a little cattywampus when everything is tightened down. So what I did was, while it's all still loose, I just threaded these in. They're not tight. The fronts are sitting on the studs. Now what I'm going to do is move the seat back by just touching the wires together. And then I am going to stare at my scratch seat for hopefully not much longer. And I'm going to try and center the seat as best I can to the steering wheel. It looks like they do actually offset it quite a bit, so it shouldn't be as much of a nightmare as I thought. I'll show you what I find. So I forgot to film an update. Basically, I just put a blanket underneath the seat to kind of raise it up, but also be flexible enough to where I can move it around. I had a variety of spacers, ones at which I got the seat with. That should not be loose, real, so I need to look at that. Interesting. I tightened everything down, and then I did the front bolts. The conclusion I came to was I had 2 thin ones and 1 thick one, and then I had 2 thick ones on the front. I just tried to make it the same for both sides with a variety of spacers I have. It does offset a seat a lot with these brackets, so I don't know how perfect you need it to be, but anyways, that's what I ended up doing. Now moving on to the wiring. I needed to grab some spare wiring from that old wiring harness from an M30B32, and yeah, I'll go through the wiring. Alright, so I was able to have all the correct wiring colors. That way, at least that's the same as the stock seat for the motors and the power and ground. I'm not too happy with how the wiring came out. Please, for the love of God, just buy a basic wiring kit off Amazon, not this parts store shit. Comes these terrible crimp connectors that I hate. Also get a pigtail from a parts car. I mean, the seat goes forward and back, so I guess I can't really complain too much. It just looks kind of sloppy, but whatever. And, well, I got it tangled, but you really want to have the seatbelt going through this buckle here. That way, when it's latched, it'll put pressure around your wrist if you ever are in the event of an accident. Obviously, don't get it twisted like me. You just remove this bolt and you can slide this off and orientate it how you need to. Honestly, I skipped ahead on the wiring. If you're pretty good at electrical, you should be able to figure it out. If this is all magic to you, I'm going to give a high-level explanation, just a basic overview of it. So basically, from your stock sheet, you're going to have a red and brown wire going to the big yellow connector. This is power that is always on, whether the car is key on or key off or ignition, it always has power. So if you're working on it, be careful not to short it out. Just don't touch it to the brown wire. So keep the red and brown wire separate. So this switch is actually pretty smart. So what they did is they put a lot of logic in the switch. So when you press a button, it will send power to 1 or 4. 1 or 4 are the 2 motors going to the seat wires. And what happens is they'll flip the positive and negative to switch the way the seat goes. Now, 3 and 2 are both common ground. So you need to figure out a way or cut up an OE harness. These 2 have to come back to the 1 wire in the factory harness somehow. You can do whatever war crime or correct way to do that. Yeah. There's 2 types of E30 window switch, so I don't know if they have a picture of the other style in here. Okay, so you see how these buttons are all faded? These do not have a backlight. If I go to my E28, which is a late 87 car, it has backlit window switches. So they shouldn't be on right now. They shouldn't be on with key on, but they just have very, like, this will never fade out. It's not paint. So if you're at the yard and you get older switches, you don't have to do the modification to modify the switch, so it doesn't drain your battery. That's a little life hack for you there. I think I actually have one in the box here. Yeah, so this is a backlit window switch. So here's the 2 of them next to each other. So if you're shopping or junkyarding, I would just get an early switch. Usually the paint will be faded off, so if that bothers you, that's tough. Then you need to modify one of these. Or I think they sell decals for this, but again, I mean, with the way the switch is mounted, you really don't need the arrows. But again, I understand visually if that's unappealing. So those are 2 options as far as... Yeah, I just took the car for a test drive. It's a little bit lower than I like. It's actually not as low as I thought when I was sitting in the driveway, but I'm honestly not too worried about it. It's not an immediate priority. But yeah, seat can make a huge difference for a car. Like now, with this seat, it's comfortable and all, but it's just really uncomfortable for me to sit in because I don't know, I'm really skinny. So my arms just hit him. It's a terrible time. So now I actually am comfortable in the car. So put a seat in your car, have a good time. And this is how crazy I am. I actually mark my rails. That way if someone moves my seat, I'm not like trying to find the seat adjustment like, oh my God, am I back to where I think I was? I just mark it. And then you can always put your seat back to where you like it.